Hare Krishna. Can you hear my voice? Am I audible? Is my voice audible? Okay, let's start. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminati Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. We have been discussing from the 11th chapter of the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The chapter is titled as The Teachings of Jadabharata. So in this, we have till now seen that Rahuguna chastises Jadabharata. Rahuguna says that he chastises Jadabharata as being, you are very mm, healthy, you are so fatigued, and you are not at all healthy, you are so fatigued, and all that. And Jadabharata said that is all, those all exist only for those on the bodily platform. And Raviguna says that, what do you mean? If I carry something, I become fatigued. If I have seen this in everyone, so why should you say that you don't become fatigued? I do understand that the body and soul are different, but the body and soul are connected. So when the body becomes fatigued, the soul will also experience a fatigue because of identification. So Jayabharata says what you say is right, but it is not true for a self-realized soul like myself. Okay. So, I will do a quick recap of what we have seen here. So he said, Jadabharata told Rahuguna, though you are speaking like a learned man, you are a fool. Why? Because the wise do not speak of the material world by discerning it to be the truth. I mean, which means the complete truth, the absolute truth. Okay. You are claiming the material world and its objects to be the concluding truths by giving the example of pot and sweet rice. But this example is inappropriate. Why? Why is this example inappropriate? There is contact between the fire and pot, but there is no connection between the liberated soul and the body. Okay, there is no connection between the liberated soul and the body. Of course, here the clarification, the important point is liberated soul. Okay. In the conditioned soul, also there is no touch between the soul and the body, but that there is an imagined connection. There is an imagined connection that exists between the soul and the body for the conditioned soul, but there is not even an imagined connection between the soul and the body for the liberated soul. Okay. Then he says, therefore, fatigue of the body does not mean fatigue of the Atma. Your inference fails, as you cannot say that you, the conditioned soul, and me, the liberated soul, are the same. So your arguments are valid for a conditioned soul like yourself. But these arguments are invalid for a liberated soul like myself. So therefore, you are applying the right anuman or the right inference on the wrong person. This does not apply. Okay. But Jadabharata may say, but Rahuguna may say, oh, but the Vedas are filled with knowledge about the living entities in this material world, isn't it? The Vedas are filled with knowledge about the living entity, about living in this material world. The Vedas are filled with it. Now you are actually trivializing the material world by calling it insubstantial. If it was insubstantial, then why would the vast majority of the Vedas talk about living in this material world? Okay, and comfortably living in this material world and enjoying in this material world. Why would the vast majority of the Vedic scriptures talk about it? This question arises. In response to this, Jadabharata says, yes, that is true. But discussions on the absolute truth generally do not arise in the Vedas, which is filled with knowledge about proliferation of household life. Household life means material life. This is because most people are not qualified for the knowledge about absolute truth. That's why the Vedas are predominantly filled with knowledge about material enjoyment in this material world, because that's what people are interested. So the Vedas want such people also to accept the Vedic literatures. So he says, okay, okay, come. What do you want? You want enjoyment? Okay, I will tell you how to enjoy. So therefore, because most people fall within that category, most part of the Vedas talk about this subject matter. Hmm. So therefore, uh, uh, so yeah. So then he says, so then the question is, so who is qualified and who is not qualified for understanding the absolute truth? He says, men who are engrossed in material household life and who cannot by themselves infer the inferiority of household life cannot understand the subject matter of absolute truth. Okay. So someone should understand that this material world is insubstantial and material pursuits are insubstantial. Okay. Unless one comes to such a conclusion, one cannot understand absolute truth because there is no appetite to understand the absolute truth. There is no appetite to understand the absolute truth. Like Srila Prabhupada says, unless you want to escape the material world, there is no need for you to accept a spiritual master. Why? Because you don't have the real uh, appetite to escape this material world. So when you don't have the appetite to escape this material world, there is no need for you to uh, uh, approach a spiritual master. So, so therefore, that person who has not by himself uh, understood the futility, mm, that person who has not by himself understood the futility of material life, uh, um, he cannot understand the absolute truth because there is no appetite to understand the absolute truth. Okay. So that is very important. That's what he says. So this is where we ended our discussion yesterday. So let us continue. This is Jadabharata continuing. यावन्मनोरजसा पूरुषस्य सत्त्वेन वा तमसा वानुरुद्धं चेतोभिराकूतिभिरातनोति निरङ्कुशं कुशलं चेतरं वा यावत् purushasya manaha, as long as a man's mind, rajasa satvena va tamasa va anuruddham, is bound by the rajas sattva or tamas. Nirankusham, the mind like an uncontrolled mad elephant. Atanoti, it continues to engage. Hmm. Kushalam cha itaramba, it continues to engage that person in dharma and adharma. Chetobir akutibir. Cheta akuti refer to the karmendriyas and gyanendriyas. Hmm. So basically, he says in this section, he is going to talk about how the mind is the cause of material entanglement. So Jadabharata says that yavan mano rajasa purushasya satvena va tamasa va anuruddham. As long as the person's mind is bound by the three modes of material nature, uh, it continues to engage that person in dharma and adharma using the karmendriyas and gyanendriyas. As long as the mind. is within the three modes. Okay. If it is more in sattva, um, it will engage him in nishkama karma. Okay. If it is more in rajas, it will engage him in sakama karma. If it is more in tamas, it will engage him in adharma. Okay. So it says, why is it? uh, why is it that generally, even though enlightened by devotees, all men engage in material happiness? This question arises. You are you are giving good intelligence. You devotees are giving good intelligence. Why is it that despite being enlightened by the devotees, still most people engage in material happiness? What is the reason? So Jadabharta says, as long as the mind is bound by rajas, sattva, or tamas, the mind, like an uncontrolled mad elephant, engages a saintly person in dharma or adharma by the knowledge senses and the action senses. Chetobir akutibi. Chetobihi and akutibihi. Chetobihi is the Gyanendriyas and akutibihi is the Karmendriyas. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay. By force, the mind with its gunas destroying discrimination engages in pious or sinful actions. What fault is there in the human being for this? Like that. So he says that as long as the man's mind is bound by the rajas, sattva, or tamas, the mind, like an uncontrolled mad elephant, continues to engage that person in dharma and adharma using the karmendriyas and gyanendriyas. And what is the nature of the mind? Savasanatma vishayoparakto guna pravaho vikrita shodashatma bibrat pratannam abhirupa bhedam antarbahishvam cha puraistanoti. Saha, the mind, Shodashatma, the chief amongst the 16 elements, Vasanatma is endowed with pious and sinful impressions. Vishayoparakto, it is attached to sense objects. Guna Pravaho, it is agitated by the gunas. Vikritaha, it is transformed by emotions. Bibrat Rupa Bedam, it's supporting different forms. Antar Bahishtvam cha Puraistanoti, through acceptance of different bodies, extends itself higher and to uh, extends itself higher and lower positions. Pritak Nama Bihi with different names. So let us try to understand this verse. Very important verse. It talks about the nature of mind. The mind, Shodasha Atma, that is the first characteristic of mind. Okay. Amongst all the 16 elements, mind is the topmost. What are the 16 elements? The five karmendriyas, the five jnanendriyas, and the five tanmatras. Rupa, rasa, sparsha, gandha, shabda. Okay. 15 plus the mind. So it is called as the Shodashatma. Shodashatma means the chief amongst the 16 elements, the mind. It is Vasanatma. It is the reservoir of all the impressions, vasanas, material vasanas. Okay. Vishayoparakto, Vishaya uparaktaha. The mind is attached to sense enjoyment. That is the nature of the mind. Guna pravahaha. The mind becomes agitated by the gunas. Okay. When it is agitated by sattva, particular qualities of peace and everything. When it is agitated by rajas, then there is impatience and other such things. So that way the mind becomes um, the mind becomes agitated by the gunas. Vikritaha, it becomes transformed by emotions. The state of the mind definitely becomes transformed by emotions. Different emotions transform the mind in different ways. Bibrat Rupa Bedam. The mind only supports various forms through acceptance of different bodies. Okay. Through acceptance of different bodies. Okay. So you see that the mind of a child is such that the child can remain within the womb of the mother for 9 months without any ability to move its limbs here and there. But because uh, the mind is not so developed, the mind can maintain that body. The mind can maintain that body. Whereas you put a person, uh, I had long time back shared this example. Uh, I had long time back shared this example. When we were very, very young, I was probably 5 years old or 6 years old. Uh, So we lived in a joint family. You know, my father's brother, my father's brother's family, my father's sister's family, and my father's another sister's family, and our family. So four families plus one more family. Okay. My okay. So five families were living in one big, huge house, which was divided into multiple sections. Okay. Five different families, are all are connected families only. So we were some young boys, cousin brothers, who used to play around. And my elder brother, he actually locked me inside a cupboard. Okay. He locked me inside a cupboard. Okay. So it was a small cupboard. I was a small boy. So he pushed me inside the cupboard and he latched it from outside so that I could not come out. And that door was an old door. It had a lot of holes. There was enough ability to, breathe. But I was feeling very suffocated. I felt I was going to die. Okay. And within a couple of minutes, I was just banging the this thing and in great desperation because the mind was making me feel that I will not be able to maintain this body. Okay. So the mind, uh, even in conventional terms, we say that, oh, this person, despite his physical problems, despite his health conditions, managed to live for another 10, 15 more years. Look at his determination, we say. Okay. Look at how determined he is. Okay. So the mind has the capacity to maintain the body. Hmm. So that's what here it says that antar bahishvam cha purais tanoti. Bibrat. Bibrat means to maintain, to support. It supports different forms through acceptance of different bodies and extends itself higher to higher and lower positions with different names. You know, call it a human body or a animal body or a bird body like that. So here Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti writes, the mind endowed with impressions of piety and sin, contaminated with sense objects, vishayoparakto, uh, agitated by the gunas, gunair, guna pravaho, and transformed by the lust and other emotions. Uh, Vikritaha, Vikritaha, transformed. The chief element amongst the 16. Okay. Shodashatma. Accepting different forms such as devata, animal or human, higher or lower, through bodies, manifests itself with various names. The sandhi should be namabhi rupa bedam. The short form of namabhi is poetic license. Okay. So Jadabharata is explaining to Rahuguna about the nature of the mind and how the mind is the cause of, mm, you know, samsara. Dukkam sukam vyatiriktam cha tivram kalopapannam falamavyanakti आलिङ्ग्यमाया रचितान्तरात्मा स्वदेहिनं संसृति चक्रकूटः. Antaratma, the mind, samsriti chakrakutaha. Kutaha means kuta is deception. Deception. The cause of deception in the repetition of birth and death. So why is it deception? Because the soul has no birth and no death. Hmm? The soul has no birth and no death. So therefore, it is deception. The mind is the cause of this deception. Hmm? The mind is the cause of this deception. The mind, the cause of deception in the repetition of birth and death. Maya rachita. The covering on the jiva made by Maya. So the covering on the jiva is the mind. Mind here is the subtle body. Okay. Swadehinam alingya. By embracing the jiva, avyanakti, it creates tivram, unavoidable phalam, fruits in the form of dukkam, sukam, vyatiriktam. Distress, happiness, and illusion. Kalopapannam in the course of time. So it is this mind completely embracing the soul so that the soul does not see itself. It sees only the mind and identifies with the mind as the self. Identifies with the mind as the self. Okay. So he thinks that uh, I am doing it. So it makes the jiva undergo distress, happiness, illusion, etc., which is actually undergone by the mind. Of course, mind cannot experience these things, but through the agency of the mind, the jiva experiences. But mind itself is inanimate. Mind cannot experience anything. But without the mind, but mind can facilitate the jiva to experience material emotions. Uh, The mind can facilitate the jiva to experience material emotions uh, by identifying with the mind. So, uh, so the jiva is like the electricity. Mind is like the refrigerator. The refrigerator can cool, but without electricity, the refrigerator cannot cool. Okay, without electricity, the refrigerator cannot cool. But the electricity in itself cannot cool. Electricity needs the refrigerator to cool. Okay, so that way they both work hand in glove. Okay, the mind needs the jiva to experience emotions. The mind needs the jiva to make the jiva experience emotions. The mind cannot experience emotions. Mind needs the jiva to make the jiva experience emotions. Okay. By making the jiva identify with the mind. The jiva needs the mind to experience material emotions. Okay. So therefore, uh, here we say that the mind embraces the jiva. Okay. Actually, mind again is an inanimate object. It is through the orchestration of the Maya potency. By the orchestration of Maya Devi, mind embraces the jiva or rather the jiva embraces the mind and starts identifying with the mind. Uh, The jiva embraces the mind and starts identifying with the mind. Okay, like that. So the mind creates suitable results. The mind creates distress, happiness, illusion, which are unavoidable. How can something material create anything? This question arises. Embracing the jiva, which is the cause, the mind, a covering on the jiva, it creates. The mind causes deception in the wheel of rebirth. It makes that the jiva, which has no birth and no death, it makes that the jiva experience all of that. Okay. Similarly, Grama Kotaka means the village cheat. Now, he continues talking about the mind. Jadabartha says, Tavanayam vyavaharas sadavihi kshetrajna sakshyo bhavati stula sukshmaha tasman manolinga mado vadanti guna gunatvasya paravarasya. Ayam, this samsara created by the mind, avihi, manifested vyavaharaha as the practical material world. So the practical material world is the samsara which is created by the mind. Hmm? Stula sukshma with waking and dream states. The samsara created by the mind manifested as the practical material world with waking and dream states. Sada sakshyo. It is constantly witnessed kshetragya by the knower of the field. Hmm? This samsara created by the mind, manifested as the practical material world in waking and dream states, is constantly witnessed by the knower of the field. Tasmad, therefore, vadanti, they say, manolingam, that the mind is the cause, guna agunatvasya, of both bondage and liberation. Manayeva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. Okay, like that it is mentioned. Manayeva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. Para avarasya, okay, which are known as the inferior and the superior states of existence. So the samsara created by the mind, manifested as a practical material world with waking and dream states, is constantly witnessed by the jiva, which is the kshetragya. So the jiva uh, constantly observes, uh, it constantly observes the uh, material world, uh, which is created by the mind. So material world is not created by the mind. Okay. Material world is not created by the mind. The conception that this material world is very relevant for me, that conception is created by the mind. Relevance of that material world with the self is created by the mind. So if there is no relevance, then there is no existence for all practical purposes. Like we say that uh, when someone becomes too absorbed in something, okay, you say that, hey, you are acting as if I don't exist only. You are acting as if I don't exist only. Okay. Why? Um, uh, why? Because uh, there is no concern. You know, there is when there is no relevance, when there is no relevance, then you don't interact. There is no interaction. So here, when he says mind creates the material world, It means mind creates some relevance in, in the jiva about the material world, so that the jiva can start interacting with the material world. So when that relevance is lost, when the mind becomes purified for the liberated soul, the jiva loses relevance with the material world. Then the material world does not exist for the liberated soul. Does not exist means what? There is no utility. There is no utility. There is no reason for interaction. Huh? Okay, like that. So there is no utility. Okay, so that is the point. So here he says, samsara created by the mind, manifested as the practical material world with waking and dream states, is constantly witnessed by the knower of the field. Therefore, they say that the mind is the cause of bondage and liberation. Manayeva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. Bandhayai vishaya sango muktiyai nirvishayam manaha. Mind is the cause of bondage and liberation. Mind absorbed in material things is the cause of bondage. Uh, Whereas when the mind is detached, then it becomes the cause of liberation. Hmm. So samsara caused by the mind is called the practical material world. In this way, the material world makes its appearance, always seen by the knower of the field in waking and dreaming states. The happiness of the self, which is called truth, is caused by the mind. Therefore, the mind alone is the cause of samsara and liberation, which are low and high conditions for the jiva. The order of the two words para and avara should be reversed to correspond to guna and agunatvasya. Okay. To summarize what we have seen in this chapter till now, uh, I will summarize. Okay. So he says, Jadabharta said, oh, though you are speaking like a learned man, you are a fool. Why? Because the wise do not speak of the material world by discerning it to be the truth. You are claiming the material world and its objects to be the concluding truths by giving the example of pot and sweet rice. But this example is inappropriate. Why? There is contact between fire and pot, but there is no connection between the liberated soul and the body. Therefore, fatigue of the body does not mean fatigue of the Atma for the liberated soul. Your inference fails as you cannot say that you, the conditioned soul, are the same as me, the liberated soul. Hmm. But someone may say, oh, but the Vedas are filled with knowledge about living entities, knowledge about living in this material world, isn't it? Jadabharta says, yes, that is true. But discussions on the absolute truth generally do not arise in the Vedas, which is filled with the knowledge about proliferation of household life. This is because most people are not qualified for knowledge about the absolute truth. That's why the Vedas talk about like that. Then the question is, so who is qualified and who is not qualified for understanding the absolute truth? He says, therefore, men who are engrossed in material household life and who cannot by themselves infer the inferiority of household life cannot understand the subject matter of absolute truth. There has to be loss of appetite with respect to material enjoyment and very solid appetite for understanding the absolute truth. Only then one can understand the absolute truth. Otherwise, it is not possible. If one has not understood the inferiority of material enjoyment, then such a person cannot understand the absolute truth. Then the question is, but why is it that people, in spite of being enlightened on this subject matter by the devotees, engage in activities for material happiness? Why is it? Jadabharta says, this is because the man's mind, being bound by the three modes, continues to engage him in pious and impious activities through the senses. Mind engages. This mind, endowed with pious and impious impressions and attached to sense objects, is the cause of transmigration from higher to low species. This mind creates unavoidable distress and happiness in the course of time. But the question is, but how can the mind which is material create anything? How can material mind create anything? Because mind is material. Actually, the jiva is the original cause. But the mind, because of its close proximity with the jiva, becomes an instrument in creating the happiness and distress. Okay. The samsara created by the mind manifests as the practical material world, and this is constantly witnessed by the knower of the field, which is the jiva. The happiness of self-realization is also created by the mind. Therefore, the mind is called as the cause of both bondage and liberation. Like that. So, okay, let us cover a few more verses. Further, he talks about the mind. Gunanuraktam vyasanaya jantoho kshemaya nairgunyamato manasyat yata pradipo gritavartimashnan shika sadoma bachati hyanyadasvam padam tata gunakarmanubaddham vrittir manashrayate nyatra tattvam. Manaha gunanuraktam syat. When the mind is attached to the gunas, vyasanaya jantoho, it becomes the cause of the jiva's suffering. Nairgunyam, and when the mind is detached from the gunas, kshemaya, it becomes the cause of liberation. When the mind is attached to the gunas, it is the cause of the jiva's suffering, and when the mind is detached from the gunas, it becomes a cause of liberation. Yata pradipaha, just as the lamp, anyada, with a charred wick, a wick which has already been burnt, bhajati sadhuma shikaha, it displays a smoky flame. Gritavartim, but when it is with a fresh ghee-laden wick, ashnan, it displays swampadam, a bright flame. In the same way, tata, in the same way, manaha, which is compared to the lamp, mind which is compared to the lamp, gunakarmanubaddham, when it is the mind bound by the gunas, when it is bound by the gunas means a charred wick. Shrayate vrittihi, it takes shelter of many material conditions which is compared to the smoke. Anyatra, and at other time, tattvam, when it is ghee laden, when it is laden with proper ghee, it enjoys the taste of the Lord's sweetness. It enjoys means it allows the jiva to enjoy the Lord's sweetness. So, like that. So how can the one mind be the cause of differing conditions, bondage and liberation? He says, Nairgunya means nirgunam. A lamp with a burned up ghee wick burns with a smoky flame. So an example is given. How can one mind both be the cause of bondage and liberation? He says, just like this, one lamp can be the cause of both smoke and light in the same way. So when the lamp becomes the cause of smoke, when it is endowed with a charred wick, and when it becomes the cause of uh, uh, light, when it is endowed with a ghee laden wick. Okay, the wick is compared to the impressions, vasana. So a lamp with burned up ghee wick burns with a smoky flame, and at another time gets extinguished and merges with the elements. Swapadam. Or a lamp with a burned up ghee wick burns with a smoky flame, but when fed on golden ghee, it burns without smoke in its brilliant form. Similarly, the mind bound by the gunas takes shelter of many functions, but at another time obtains a taste of the Lord's sweetness. In this way, the mind becomes the cause of both bondage and liberation for the jiva. Okay. Then he says, what are the functions of the mind? He says, Ekadashasan manaso hi vrittaya akutayah panchadiyo bhimanah matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikadasha veera bhumihi. Manaso hi ekadasha vrittaya asan. The 11 functions of the mind are akutayah panchadiyo abhimanah. Abhimanah is ahankar, false ego. Huh? So the 11 functions of the mind are the 5 knowledge senses, the 5 action senses, and the ahankar. O king, they say that there are 11 objects for the senses, the 5 tanmatras, the actions of the 5 action senses, and the body. Matrani karmani puramcha. Matra are the tanmatras. Rupa, rasa, sparsha, gandha, and shabda, which is experienced by the jnanendriyas. And karma are the 5 activities accomplished by the karmendriyas. Okay. And pura is the body. So the 11 functions of the mind are the 5 knowledge senses, the 5 action senses, and the ahankar. And the 11 objects of the senses are the 5 tanmatras, which the mind enjoys through the 5 jnanendriyas, and the 5 activities which the 5 activities which the mind performs through the karmendriyas, and the body with which the mind experiences ahankar. So the 5 functions of the mind and the 5 objects of the mind are mentioned. So this verse shows the conditions of or the vrittis of the mind. There are 11 vrittis, 5 action senses, 5 knowledge senses, and ahankar. For these 11, there are 11 objects. Okay. The tanmatras are the sense objects of the 5 knowledge senses, jnanendriyas. Actions such as elimination are the sense objects of the 5 action senses. With hands, you pick up an object, with legs, you reach your destination. With your genitals, you you know, ec- you give up urine and enjoy sex life. And with the anus, you do the action of expelling waste, solid waste, okay, and so on. And with the tongue, you engage in speech. So these are the 5 actions. The body, house, etc. are the objects of ahankar. Okay. Then he continues. Gandha kriti sparsha rasa shravamsi visargaratyartyabijalpa shilpaha ekadasham swikaranam mameti shayyamaham dwadashameka ahuhu. Ekadasham swikaranam. The 11 objects are Gandha, Akriti, Sparsha, Rasa, Shravamsi. Fragrance, form, touch, taste, and sound. So he's explaining what are those 11 objects. So these 5 are the 5 of the five objects of the Gyanendriyas. Evacuating, sexual intercourse, motion, speaking, and grasping. These are the five objects of the Karmendriyas. And mama, the possessiveness of the objects, this is for the body. Some say the 12th object is the body, identified as I by the Ahankar. So the count is slightly, sometimes it is 11, sometimes it is 12. This verse describes the objects. First, the five tanmatras starting with fragrance are described in relation to the Gyanendriyas. Starting with the nose. Akriti means form. The action starting with evacuation of the objects of the five karmendriyas, action senses. This makes 10. Arti means going. The 11th item is the body which is accepted. Because of Ahankar's 12 twofold nature of mine and I, some acharyas say that the 11th object is possessiveness of things like house. And the 12th object is the identification with the body for the Ahankar. So because Ahankar has two forms, Ahankar and Mamakar, self-identification and possessiveness. Therefore, sometimes the count is mentioned to be 12 and sometimes the count is mentioned to be 11. So in this way, two types of counts are mentioned. Jadabharata continues. Dravya swabhavas, dravya swabhava, shaya karma kalair, ekadashami. Oh. Okay. Just give me 1 second. My PowerPoint just stopped working. I'll open the PowerPoint. Just give me a second. Okay. We are in verse number, yeah. We are going to start verse number 11. Okay. Dravya swabhava shaya karma kalair ekadashami manaso vikaraha sahasrashah shatashak kotishascha kshetrajnato namito nasvatasyuhu. Vikaraha, because of the transformations or variations, Dravya, Swabhava, Ashaya, Karma, and Kala. Because of variations in materials, natures, Antakarana, Karma, and time, Ami Ekadasha Manaso Vikaraha, the 11 transformations of the mind, Sahasrashaha, Shatashaha, Kotishascha, it becomes hundreds, thousands, and millions. Because of the variations of material, nature of the person, the different types of antakarana the person possesses, and karma and time. So therefore the transformation, the 11 transformations of the mind becomes hundreds and thousands and millions. Na mitona swatasyuhu. They become unlimited not by themselves or their combined strength. Kshetrajnato, but by the power of the Paramatma. By the power of the Paramatma, the transformation of the mind becomes unlimited. Becomes unlimited. So here, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, there are unlimited varieties of these functions of the mind by subdivision. The transformations of the functions first becomes hundreds and then thousands, hundreds of thousands and millions by divisions of the material objects. Because of the infinite number of material objects such as sandalwood, musk, kumkum, gold, silver and coral, etc. Because of the infinite number of natures, one person may enjoy a certain fragrance, etc. Because of the good or bad nature of the antakarana, because of control by karma and the control by time in the form of age, that is baby, youth, etc. There are unlimited varieties of a single function such as fragrance. So something you see here, some objects, sandalwood, musk, kumkum, etc. Uh, you know, they are enjoyable. Some are enjoyable, some are not enjoyable. And some person can enjoy some fragrance and they cannot enjoy some other fragrance. It depends on their nature also. Hmm. And it depends on the antakarana also, its capacity to enjoy. Whether the antakarana is influenced by sattva, rajas or tamo guna depends on that, what is enjoyable, what is not enjoyable. And the ability to enjoy in the form of karma should also be there. And age also should be there. Something which can be enjoyed in a young age cannot be enjoyed in an old age. And something which can be enjoyed in an older age cannot be enjoyed in a very young age. So all of this put together leads to unlimited forms of transformations of the mind. Okay. Not by themselves and not by their combination, but because the Paramatma has unlimited power, these functions become unlimited in number. So to summarize what we have seen today and yesterday put together, I will summarize that now. So here we saw these two things, right? Jadabharata said, though you are speaking like a learned man, you are a fool. Why? Because the wise do not speak of the material world by discerning it to be the truth. You are claiming that the material world and its objects to be the concluding truths by giving the example of pot and sweet rice. But that example is inappropriate. Why is it inappropriate? Because there is contact between fire and pot, but there is no connection between the liberated soul and its body. Therefore, fatigue of the body does not mean fatigue of the Atma for the liberated soul. It applies only to the conditioned soul. So therefore, your inference fails, as you cannot say that you, the conditioned soul, and me, the liberated soul, are the same. Okay. Then the question is, okay, so if the material world is insubstantial, then why the Vedas, which are the ultimate pramana for everyone, why there is so much description about living happily in this material world? Vedabharta says, yeah, generally discussions of the absolute truth do not arise in the Vedas because most people are not qualified for the knowledge about the absolute truth. They are only interested in enjoying in this material world. So if you say that no, Vedas will not speak about enjoying in this material world, then they will reject the Vedas. So just to initially just attract them to the Vedas talk about that. So therefore, who is qualified and who is not qualified for understanding the absolute truth? Only that person who has uh, understood uh, the inferiority of material life and this material world, only he is qualified to understand the absolute truth. But then the question is, why is it that people, in spite of being enlightened on this subject matter by the devotees, engage in activities for material happiness? Why do people do that? This is because the man's mind, being bound by the three modes, it continues to engage him in dharma and adharma through the various senses. And this mind is endowed with, what is this mind? It is endowed with pious and sinful impressions. Vasanatma. Vishayoparakto, and it is attached to sense objects. And therefore it becomes the cause of transmigration from one species to another species. Hmm. So this mind creates unavoidable distress and happiness in the course of time. But the question is, but the mind is material. How can the material mind create anything? So the answer is that actually the jiva is the original cause. But the mind, because of its close proximity to the jiva, becomes an instrument in creating the happiness and distress. And therefore, this samsara created by the material world, created by the mind, manifests as the practical material world. And this material world is witnessed by the jiva. But the happiness of self-realization is also created by the mind. Therefore, the mind is both the cause of bondage and liberation for the jiva. The question, but how can one mind become the cause of two different states? That is bondage and liberation. So he says, mind, when it is attached to the gunas, it becomes the cause of bondage. And the mind, when it is detached from the gunas, becomes the cause of liberation. These two states can be compared to a lamp with a charred wick and a lamp with a fresh ghee-laden wick. Just as the lamp with a charred wick displays a smoky flame, and with a fresh ghee-laden wick displays a bright flame, the mind bound by the gunas takes shelter of the many conditions or transformations, and at another time it enjoys the taste of the Lord's sweetness. But then the question is, what do you mean by many conditions or transformations of the mind? What are they? So he says the mind has the tendency to experience sound, form, touch, etc. And the mind accomplishes these through the five Gyanendriyas. Sorry, the mind accomplishes these through the five Karmendriyas, five Gyanendriyas, and the Ahankar. These are called the 11 transformations of the mind. These senses have their corresponding sense objects. But then what is the sense object of the Ahankar? Or uh, that is the objects in the body. The body becomes the source of the Ahankar. And the objects becomes the source of Mamakar, possessiveness. But then he clarifies, but these are not just 11 transformations of the mind. Due to variations in Dravya, Swabhava, Ashaya, which is Antakarana, Karma and Kala, there are 11 transformations of the mind. These 11 transformations of the mind become unlimited. But they become unlimited not by themselves or by their combined strength, but this becomes unlimited by the power of the super soul, by the power of the super soul. Okay, so this is where we ended our discussion today. So we have about little more than half an hour to for some discussion points, questions, comments. So we can take that right now. Anything anyone would like to share, ask, add, you can either type your questions in the chat box or raise your hands. Okay, let's start. Yes, Keshav Priya Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavad pranams. Here we see that material world, you mentioned while discussing, you said, Prabhuji, that a jiva should understand the lower nature of this material world's uh, happiness or something like that. Ji.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
generally, um, uh, after so many lifetimes, we have been burnt out by certain experiences, and when we come into uh, contact with either with the according to certain adhikas, we will with the devotees or whom we meet, we try to take up higher reality. Sarji.
yeah, yeah,
So here also it looks like most of us, some may have, some may not have, but we have a very we have an experience of the material world which is bad, and it looks like we are taken up bhakti and we are doing Prabhuji. But my question is, there's a difference between the sour is in the grape is sour. Like I'm not able to enjoy this material world, so let me take up this. It gives me some happiness. That is there, Prabhuji. But really understanding that material happiness is very low. There is a difference between both, now, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
understanding that the material happiness is low is
Mm.
not possible
Mm.
unless there is an experience of a higher alternative.
Mm.
So, and that
Mm.
experience of that higher alternative comes from faith in bhakti, which one gets by the association of
Mm.
devotees, or by faith in
Mm.
the other processes of jnana, karma, etc., which also one gets according to their appropriate
Mm.
adhikar. So,
Mm.
so therefore, the ultimate cause is not um, knowledge of the inferior nature or conviction that the material pleasures are inferior, but
Mm.
the source of that is either jnana adhikar or bhakti adhikar, which one
Mm.
gets through appropriate association.
Mm. So my next question is, Prabhuji. So sometimes we may be so much absorbed in this material misery around us, and we may do bhakti because it gives us some solace. So if we
Yeah.
are at what time, uh, understanding that this material pleasure itself is very low, the transformation can happen only through bhakti, Prabhuji. Because sometimes we may try to find solutions for the material problems through bhakti also. So that
Yeah.
what I am trying to ask you is, really we should understand this material happiness is low. Even if I become the number one rich man, that happiness is nothing. That should be understood by us, na Prabhuji. That is what is called as material happiness is low.
Yeah. So so therefore that's why when you begin bhakti,
Mm.
uh, you are not you are not yet ready for achieving perfection.
Mm. Mm.
That comes only when you progress in bhakti, and when you progress in bhakti, then you develop more and more conviction about the
Mm.
futility of material
Mm. Mm.
enjoyment in this material world.
Mm. Mm.
So therefore, in the beginning, we
Mm.
may utilize bhakti uh, for overcoming material
Relief.
miseries
Mm.
like
Mm.
that. But over a
Mm.
period of time, when bhakti pareshanubhavo virakti.
Mm. Mm.
So when we progress more and more in bhakti, then gradually genuine detachment will also come. That takes time.
Mm. So that will come naturally, spontaneously, Prabhuji. We cannot,
Yeah,
our own self, we cannot
yeah.
get
You
it now,
you do,
Prabhuji.
of
It is
course.
a byproduct
You
of bhakti, it will come, Prabhuji. Is it like
Yeah.
that?
It's a byproduct of bhakti, and one of the limbs
Mm.
of bhakti is
Mm.
Shravanam. And one aspect of Shravanam is also to understand the nature of this
Mm.
material world.
Ah. So it is purely on the mercy, Prabhuji, because always you say, na Prabhuji, all that we have is even for Shravanam, I can come and hear, but to have that realization that material world is low, is it purely by mercy, Prabhuji, by the acharyas and lordship?
Yeah, it is purely by mercy, but that mercy can be attracted by genuine
Endeavors.
endeavor.
Oh, okay, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, and one question asked by Raghugana, like the same mind is the cause of liberation and same kind, and that example, that
La-
example is
mm,
explained, Prabhuji, that
Yeah,
lamp example.
yeah,
So, if we take this example, it means this only mind is only one. So when it is filled with material impressions, it acts in a bond. It is a bondage. So when that impression after anartha nivritti, then if it is filled with spiritual experience, then it is a liberation. Is it like that, Prabhuji?
yeah,
Or a devotees at least or
yeah, yeah,
but it is only one mind for a jiva.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Very Mother Gail.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah,
Correct.
but this was a very dense class. I'm going to
Yeah.
have to re-listen a few times. Um, but to begin with, let me just follow up on something you just said just now. That understanding that the enjoyment of this world is low is a combination of both mercy and our endeavor. So I understand the mercy part, you have to come in contact with a devotee
Yeah.
to get that.
Yeah.
But then what is the endeavor part?
The endeavor part is to practice bhakti.
Oh, okay. So by by practicing bhakti, we gradually develop a higher and higher taste.
Yeah. And concomitantly, we develop detachment from the lower taste.
Yeah, right. Okay, another thing, Prabhu, is when we're talking about the millions of combinations that come from, the, I guess, the sense objects, the senses,
Hmm.
and all things.
Yeah.
Um, all of these combinations, we said, are, is it due to or caused by the Paramatma?
Yeah. The Paramatma is the one which is allowing each of these elements to function according to their nature.
Or like that? Because I was
Yeah.
thinking more in terms of the five factors of action, where it's the Paramatma that sanctions.
No, that
Um,
is also that is there, but the Paramatma is the living force which allows all the elements to act according to their dharma.
uh
That
huh.
is the
Uh huh.
Paramatma. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, Another thing is the when we say that the object of the false ego
Hmm.
is the body, just like the object of the sense of smell is like aroma, right?
Yeah.
So the object of the false ego
Hmm.
is the body. Can you
Yeah.
just expand on that? Yeah.
Yeah. Because false ego means uh, uh, ahankar means self-identification and possessiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So this is called as ahankar and mamakar. So self-identification means who am I, and possessiveness means what belongs to me. So in order to identify with something as I, there has to be that object. That object is the body, because here we are talking about false identification.
Mm-hmm.
And to identify with something as mine, there has to be some objects. So those are the house and the family and wealth and all those things.
And the body.
So yeah, and the body also. Like,
Okay. Uh, and one of the slides, it said arti means going. What did that refer to? What did that mean?
it means like it's just a synonym. It's just a word meaning that was given. Because various karmendriyas was given. The with the legs you go to different place. With hands you grab objects, and with a tongue you speak like that. So the functions of the karmendriyas was mentioned. In that, going to different places or walking, the word that was used in Sanskrit was arti. That's just the word
Oh,
meaning is mentioned.
oh, so arti was the sense object of the legs.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Um,
Let's see here. Where does it say? Which is the word? Gandha Akriti. Sorry, Visarga Rati, Ratyarti, Arti, Arty, Arti. Ratyatyabijalpa Shilpaha. Like that.
Okay, I'm glad you're here. No. Prabhu, go. Can you go back to 9, verse 9?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so it says here the 11 functions of the mind, the 5 knowledge senses, the 5 action senses. So the 11 functions of the mind includes, or I should say, are comprised of the 5 knowledge and action senses. That's 10 of the 11, no?
yeah.
And then and the 11th is the function of the false ego,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah,
identifies what it is and what belongs to them. They say that there are 11, so that there are 11 objects for these senses.
yeah.
So um so the false ego is counted as one of the senses here then.
Yeah.
Oh, because we never normally hear of the false ego as one of the senses. When we talk about the 11 senses, we normally talk about the karmendriyas and the gyanendriyas, and then the mind being the
Yeah.
11th sense.
Yeah.
But here,
Here the mind and the antakarana, they are kind of very interchangeably used. Antakarana is, when you say mind, what they mean is antakarana. Antakarana means it has mind, intelligence, false ego, and chitta, all four put together. So
okay, but
sometimes the word, so here ahankar does not just refer to ahankar, it refers to the whole combination. It refers to the whole package. Uh, it's
no,
just like
wait. The whole package, the 4 antakaranas, is sometimes as a package is sometimes referred to as the mind, no?
yeah.
But now you're saying the whole package is referred to as the antakarana.
See, okay, forget about the four. Let us take one only. Ultimately, what is the end result of the end purpose of the antakarana is to generate an emotion.
Okay.
So, and that antakarana has mind as one of the components, intelligence as one of the components, chitta as another component, and ahankar as another component. But at the end of it, when the sensory signals, when the eye captures an object and captures a form, or a tongue captures a taste, whatever it is, when it goes through the central processing unit of the antakarana, it comes out in the form of an emotion. uh, and
Mm-hmm.
that emotion is in relationship to the self. you know
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I liked my own cooking. Hmm. So that is like a sense of ahankar and mamakar. It comes in the language of ahankar and mamakar only. Okay. So here you don't necessarily distinguish completely between the ahankar, mind, and the antakarana and all that. Hmm. So here they are used more or less somewhat interchangeably. That whole central processing unit, sometimes, when it is said that, oh, it is the source of all vasanas or the impressions, there it refers to the mind part of the antakarana. When it is talking about ahankar, it refers to the ahankar part of the antakarana. But they all
Mm-hmm.
work as one unit only. Hmm. They
Yeah.
all work as one unit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you have a box of candies. Okay. You have a pack of candies with many flavored candies. You have a strawberry flavored candy, you have a mango flavored candy. Like that, you have multi-flavored candies. So sometimes, so you say that get the pack, okay? And when you get the pack and pull out a candy, uh, you sometimes you get a mango flavored candy, sometimes you get a strawberry flavored candy, or sometimes you want to pull out a mango flavored candy. Sometimes you want to pull out a strawberry flavored candy, but everything is there in that one box of candies. So in the same way, it is one antakarana which has four subparts: mind,
Yes.
um, the chitta, intelligence, and the ahankar. So different times. So even though sometimes the word mind is used to refer to the antakarana, sometimes here ahankar is used to indicate the whole antakarana. It's all one unit. They don't function completely independently, even though uh, mm, for practical understanding purpose in the Sankhya philosophy, they are actually divided into separate units. But for all practical purposes, they work hand in glove, like they work together as one unit, actually.
Yeah. But here, when it says the 11 functions of the mind, how is that word mind being used in this slide?
Antakarana, you can take it as antakarana.
Oh.
Yeah, the unit, the central processing unit.
Okay, so the whole four parts together.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, can we also go to verse 11 slide? Yeah, okay. Now, because of the variations in materials, natures, antakarana, karma, and time, the 11 transformations of the mind becomes, they become unlimited, not by themselves. Okay, so when we talk about the millions of transformations, that could be anything from, we're really talking about millions of emotions, no?
Yeah, correct. So you see, because the materials are different, different materials create different emotions. But different materials create different emotions in people with different natures. So, for a Sattva-guni person, a particular material may create a particular emotion, but it may create a completely different emotion in a person with Rajoguna or Tamoguna. But because people do not have uh, 100% Sattva-guna, 100% Tamoguna, or 100% Rajoguna, there are innumerable combinations of these three gunas which create innumerable shades of emotions which are created by just that person coming in touch with one object. Like that, there are millions of objects. So millions of objects create a million different emotions in one person, but uh, who is endowed with a particular combination of the three modes. But there are million different combinations of the three modes. So for each of the object, it creates million shades of emotions depending on the million different combinations of the three modes. Okay. Similarly, karma also. Karma also contributes. The person may have a desire to enjoy, but whether he will get that object and enjoy or not, that is dependent on karma. And also it depends on time. Here, time, he refers to the ages. That which you can enjoy in a younger age, you cannot enjoy it in the older age. Like that, this combination becomes unlimited. That's how he is explaining it.
Okay, and just one last thing, Prabhu. when we say that the mind is bound by the gunas, like that chart Giwik, right? The mind bound by the gunas means a mind that tries or is conditioned, let's say a mind that tries to enjoy the modes, basically. It tries to enjoy matter.
Yeah.
As a source of happiness. That's what mind bound by the gunas means.
Yeah.
And the Giwik that is not charred, let's say, has the clean ghee, right? Instead of that mind being bound by the gunas, trying to enjoy material happiness, that mind
is identifying as the servant of Krishna.
Is identifying. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Shiv Kumar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thanks, Prabhu.
Prabhu.
So thank you for the class today, Prabhu. So one thing that I'm trying to understand, Prabhu, the relationship between the emotions and then the sense objects, Prabhu. You talked about when the senses come in contact with the sense objects and that experience ultimately gets converted into an emotion, right, Prabhu?
Yeah.
So would it be a right understanding that all material emotions are ultimately dependent on sense objects?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. So in a relationship, if I have some, I mean, I understand it's not pure love, it's compromised or contaminated with lust in material world. Having with that understanding, in a relationship, if I have some favorable experience, those emotions triggered within a relationship also is ultimately dependent on some engagement experience of sense objects, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you just little bit give one example, Prabhu, and just some kind of little bit? Can you talk about this? I got your answer. I'm just trying to kind of hear from you in words and some example, Prabhu.
Yeah, that person must have pleased you by becoming a cause of gratifying one of your senses.
Okay.
Either they would have cooked a good meal for you, or they would have spoken in a way which was very pleasant to your ears.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay, Prabhu. I'm just taking a little serious example, Prabhu. I apologize if it's kind of insensitive in any way. When a mother feeds the baby through her breast, is that also an emotion that the mother experiences by putting the baby into contact with the sense subject of her breast milk?
Yeah, because the hunger of the baby is satisfied by the mother.
Okay. Okay. So even out of any relationship between even a mother and a son, a mother and the baby, even including that, every single emotion is dependent ultimately on sense subject in this world.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. I have few more follow-up, Prabhu. Maybe I'll just think about, contemplate, and frame the questions and come back tomorrow, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. So, something in the chat box. Okay, something in the chat box. Let's take. How to understand the difference between Swabhava and Antakarana? Well, Swabhava, they are very closely connected actually, but they are not synonymous. Swabhava means you can say a kind of behavioral patterns which we have developed based on our past experiences. And those experiences are converted into emotions through the Antakarana. And the combination of those emotions creates our nature, which is Swabhava. So Antakarana are internal sense objects, internal senses, which take all the sensory perceptions in the form of form, taste, sight, etc., and transform them into emotions. And a combination of those emotions creates our swabhava or our inherent nature or our conditioned nature. Okay. Okay, I think I didn't phrase my question properly yesterday. I understand how one moves from Sakama Karma Yoga to Nishkama Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga through purification and gradual process. And that in the path of Bhakti, the advancement occurs by Satam Kripa. My question is, how does one move from being a materialist to attaining the initial stage of Sakama Karma Yoga? Is this transition primarily through association with those who are already in Sakama Karma Yoga? Yeah, that is true. So how does one attain Karmanishta? Of course, here I think you are using Karmanishta in a different way. Karmanishta means uh, desire to enjoy is Karmanishta. But here I think the way you are using Karmanishta means how does one get faith in following the Dharma Shastras for material enjoyment? Yeah, I think that's the way you are using the word Karmanishta here. So, so that one gets through associating with those people who already have that faith in the Dharma Shastras. Okay. What is the meaning of Antakarana? Antakarana means we have in the heart is the gross region. In that there are four senses which are there. The mind, the intelligence, the chitta, and the ahankar. These four individual elements, they process sensory signals based on past experiences and convert them into emotion. So Antakarana is that part of the body or the subtle body which transforms our practical experience into emotions. Like when you look at uh, when the mother looks at the child, you know, it is the eye which is capturing the form of the child, but then suddenly it transforms into joy. Okay, how that eye capturing the form is transformed into an emotion of joy. The transformation of sensory signals into emotions that is accomplished by the antakarana. That is, of course, this is in brief. There are more details to it. We may discuss it some other time. Okay, one last question. If given a choice, the mind naturally accepts that which provides the greatest happiness. The spiritual world is said to offer the highest happiness. Yet, when many people hear about this, why do they reject it and again engage in material pleasures rather than taking up to bhakti? This is a very valid point. If the spiritual world gives the greatest happiness, and if the nature of the mind is to accept the greatest happiness, then why is the mind not accepting the spiritual path? Because that happiness comes later. Avidya pittopatapta rasanasya na rochikanu. Okay. Syat Krishnanama charitadi sitapya vidya pittopatapta rasanasya na rochikanu. Yes, it is true that Krishna's Nama Rupa Guna Leela are the sweetest of the sweetest. Okay. But because our senses are covered with ignorance, we cannot experience that taste. Okay. So therefore, it is not sweet for them. And nor is it sweet for us right now. But why is it that we take up to the path of bhakti and they don't? Shraddha. We have faith, they don't have faith. Why do we have faith? Because we were fortunate to come in touch with the devotees and receive their kripa. Therefore, we have that faith. So, therefore, despite not having that taste right now, we are still willing to pursue the path of bhakti. But they are also not experiencing the taste, and therefore they are unwilling to pursue because they lack that faith. Why do they lack that faith? Because they lack uh, the uh, they lack the opportunity to come in touch with devotees. That is the reason. Okay, I think we'll pause here and continue this discussion tomorrow. Thank you all very much for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.